As you guys know, we are here for the 4 steps to sign consistent, aligned clients with a soulful strategy that actually works. Now, before we dive into everything, as I said, I'm meeting some of you guys for the first time. So I wanted to take a bit of time to say hello and introduce myself. So my name's Rosie. I'm from Scotland originally, but I've been living in South America for the last year and a half. I've spent the last year living in the Sacred Valley of Peru. I live 3,000 meters up in all the mountains around me, and I'm in this tiny town that isn't even on Google Maps. So that's how small it is. I'm surrounded by bulls and sheep and chickens and not much beyond that. And before I started my business as a soul-led business coach, I also had a business as a coach, and I help people to find their purpose. Then I transitioned into helping people to truly build their purpose. Now, in that transitional period, I have personally been on a journey myself and always had an interest in growth, personal development, spirituality, as well as the business side of things. In fact, I had my first business when I was just 16 years old, where I redecorated and rented out my brother's old bedroom as an Airbnb. And I remember I used to leave house parties and have to come check in a guest a little bit tipsy on a Koppenberg and then go back to the party because the rule with my mum was I had to be 100% responsible, otherwise I was not allowed to do it. And I bought the nice posh jam and all of that for my guests. And that was my third job I had at 16, along with waitressing and babysitting, that helped me self-fund my first ever trip solo across to Asia at 17. That was the beginning of my journey of personal development and growth and understanding more about myself and this world and this wild ride that we are living together. So that's a little bit about me. It is lovely to connect with you if this is our first time. Now, as I promised, those who are attending this masterclass live, you have the chance of winning a free strategy session with myself. So to make this fair, after the end of the masterclass, I'm going to have a list of all the attendees who came live, and I'm going to put that in a random generator on an Instagram live so that you guys can see I'm doing it legit, and one of you will be selected as a winner for that session. So if you don't already, give me a follow over on Growth with Rosie at Instagram. And this time tomorrow, so 6 p.m., I'll do that Instagram live and we can get into that. Okay. Now, before we dive in, I'm just going to make sure we haven't got anyone else in the waiting room. Amazing. And I'll be keeping an eye on this chat as well. Another 2 from Scotland. I love it. That's not always the case. So welcome, Nikki and Sharon. I'm glad to have you here. As you can tell, I don't have a very strong accent, but it is where I'm from. Alrighty. So before we dive into these 4 stages, I want to make it really clear to you what a soulful business strategy is not, okay? So we're going to go into all about what it is, but I also want you to have your blinkers aware of what actually isn't a soulful business strategy. So my first experience coming into this business world was a business approach which was really rooted in hustle culture and this really hyper masculine approach. Just push, do, don't sleep, sleazy sales, pain point marketing, all of this stuff that felt really intense and just really misaligned to how I wanted to build a business. I didn't want to bring people in because they felt forced to, okay? So that was something that it isn't. But then on the other end of the scale, because I really didn't like that hyper masculine pushy approach, I had a second experience, but that also wasn't it. And that was when I was really overly trusting, really flowy approach, where there was no clear roadmap, no direction, and just hoping that it would work out. This area had all that magnetism and trust and soul work that I loved, but there was really no clear direction. And both of these situations left me having access to just one piece of the puzzle, okay? And that wasn't getting me anywhere. I was not able to progress. I was not able to move forward in my business. Being at that point where that one didn't feel quite right and that one didn't feel quite right left me somewhere in the middle and led me to a lot of confusion, which we now call, me and my partner call my Kim K moment, where I rang him and I FaceTimed him in the middle of the day from a park, crying my eyes out, feeling really overwhelmed, really doubting myself, feeling really frustrated that things weren't happening for me. I was so determined to make this path happen, but I was feeling so lost on how I could actually do that. It was like this missing piece and led me to crying in the middle of the day, and I didn't want the kids in the poor park to see this random woman crying, so I put on these ridiculous sunglasses to cover what I was feeling. But that was a moment where I had a decision to make, and that decision was, do I give up in this first business, or do I really commit to actually understanding these knowledge gaps and make this dream that I feel so deeply is meant for me happen? And as you can guess by me being here, I didn't give up, okay? And we made those transitions to what this new path of what a soulful strategy actually is. And what that is a blend of both a clear and focused soul-based strategy over just a hope strategy. So we're not just relying on hope. We have a clear system, but we also have space for our soul, for our inner wisdom, for our inner trust to be in the mix with us. We are not becoming carbon copies of everyone else. A soulful business strategy is the entire puzzle versus just one piece. So you can see that whole roadmap. I often see a puzzle that people share, a piece of the puzzle being content, and thinking that creating content is all you need to do to have a business to work. But that's not the case. That is a key piece of your jigsaw puzzle, but it's not the only one. And when you really understand that whole space, that whole ecosystem, everything changes. And I want to give you a little bit of space to just kind of take a breath in and maybe close your eyes if it feels good. And just give yourself a moment, a breath. And as you ground yourself down, I want you to imagine what could happen for you, for your business, for your life, if you had this clear roadmap and you have the tools to support your soul on this journey too. What opens up for you when you have those two key pieces? Because we need that structure, but we also need to be held in our soul. Building a business is personal development on steroids, okay? But imagine holding and having that support. What enters your life? Maybe it's time to spend with your family. Maybe it's time to travel. Maybe it's financial freedom, to pay off debts, to give back to your community. Maybe it's having an animal sanctuary and being able to spend all your time cuddling furry little pets. Whatever it may be, there is no right or wrong. It is what you feel the desire for, what you feel called for. And I want to invite you to just sit in that for a moment. Allow your soul to get a little bit excited, a little bit expansive as you envision the possibility that lies ahead for you. Okay. And as I said, there's no right or wrong for what you desire, but I just want you to connect to that possibility. And I'm going to share with you when you're ready to open your eyes what that possibility led me to. I'm just seeing a notification, excuse me for a moment, due to the large number. I think we're good. Okay, so as I said, that's your possibility. For me, what that led to, you guys saw this, you saw the crying in the park bench in Scotland, right? And as I stepped into this blend of having that strategy and having that system, I was able to finally leave my 9 to 5. I took a one-way flight to South America with my partner. And here I am on the right, living in the mountains of Peru. This was always my dream. In fact, I traveled to Peru a few years before as a backpacker, and I didn't have any money left. And then when I was leaving Peru, I thought, I'm going to come back here. And the next time I'm here, I'm going to have a business and I'm going to have a partner. And that was the commitment I made to myself. And here we are. And the reason I share this with you isn't to say, oh, look at me, look at this, da, 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 da. It's to say, come with me. Look what's possible. And that's enough of saying what is possible without actually telling you what it is. So let's dive into those 4 stages, okay? These are the 4 stages we're going to speak through that enable you to sign consistent, aligned clients with a strategy that actually works. So we have clarity, traction, connection, and commitment. That is what we are moving through. So starting at the top with clarity, let's dive into what I mean by that. Clarity is foundational for your entire business, okay? Everything that we do in those later stages of traction, connection, commitment are based on clarity. And we need to get really clear, not just, yeah, I kind of know what I'm doing. It's pinpoint clear, okay? Because if we have this shitty foundation, right? And then we're building a house on a crappy foundation, that house is going to be a bit skew-iffy. It's going to not work quite right. And then our house is going to fall down before we've even had the chance to show it to potential buyers. And I'm sharing this as an important piece because I have seen big businesses mess up and rush past the clarity, like, yeah, whatever. Let's just get to getting clients through the door. And then they actually have a half-done house and are wondering why people aren't buying from them, okay? When you get clarity right, everything else falls into place. So I really want it to be clear that clarity isn't just a nice thing to have in business. If we don't have clarity, we're not able to connect to our ideal client. The rest of our funnel will not work. Our messaging and our content in our funnel doesn't land with them, and therefore our offers aren't of interest to them. Okay, so this is the kind of consequence of not having it. And I want to share what is really helpful to have clarity within. So within clarity, there's 3 areas that you want to get crystal clear with, not just clearish on who you are. So that's who you are, who you serve, and how you serve them. Who you are is the title. What title aligns for how you want to be? Is it a coach, a healer, a guide, a hypnotherapist? What encompasses what you're doing? And really, your who you are is guided from the who you serve and how you serve them to get to that level of detail. Who you serve, okay? As I said to you for coming into this masterclass, I'm sharing what is relevant right here, right now, in the time that you are watching this masterclass. In the past, if you said something like, I am a therapist, I am a life coach, that was enough. That was enough to have a business. But things have shifted. The industries have shifted. There's a lot more people in the online space. So that means getting really clear on who you serve is so important now more than ever, okay? That's for one reason for this. And also, I don't know if you can relate, but when I first started my first business, I didn't want this idea of niching I didn't like. I thought, I want to help everyone. I want to be able to be available to everyone and be of service to everybody because I was really doing this from my heart. And I didn't want to cut people out from receiving from me, right? But in trying to serve everyone, how many clients did I have who I was serving? 0, because I was in a sea of vanilla, okay? People are like, yeah, that kind of sounds good. But no one was saying, God, that is exactly how I feel. That is exactly what I need. And that is the transition that needs to happen. And I want to give you an example of this. Let's envision a lady called Jenny. Jenny's made up. Jenny works in a busy corporate job, right? And she's feeling workplace anxiety. It's prevented her from getting some promotions. She knows she'd be further ahead in her career if she could really overcome this. That's Jenny. There's 2 potential people who could help Jenny. One is a life coach, and one labels themselves as an anxiety coach who specializes in female professionals, okay? Even if the life coach has more qualifications, is actually better at their job, who is Jenny going to feel she's able to trust more? The one who says, yeah, I'm a life coach. Yes, I can help you. And maybe they can. Maybe they're actually better. But Jenny can't sense that versus this other person says, I'm exactly what you are looking for. I'm an anxiety coach for female professionals and I can help you. That builds a lot of trust from the get-go because Jenny feels like, yes, she gets it. This is exactly the thing for me. So we want to become Marmite, not vanilla, okay? We want people to go, yes, this is my favorite thing in the world. And others to be like, you know what? No, that's not for me, which is great because it means that your space is full of people who are really ready to commit to the journey. Again, in relation to the shifts that have happened within industry of when you're watching this now, how you serve them is so important to get clarity on as well. Again, you used to be able to say, I'm a life coach. Yeah, I'll just help you. We'll talk through things. But again, we need to create that more specific way of talking to these people. And how we do that is talking in transformations. You are currently at point A. You want to get to point B, and I am here to be of service through these 3 to 4 steps that's enabling you to get there. Again, let's think about Jenny, our anxious woman. If she is being told, okay, this is where you're actually, yeah, that's exactly how I'm feeling. This is where you want to go. Yeah, I really want to be able to be confident at work. I can support you in getting there through these stages. The trust that is built, the connection and faith that is built in that moment is really real for Jenny. And you aren't lying. You are here to be of service. You are here to create transformation in Jenny's life, but you are doing it in a way that she can digest it and feel safe to say yes to working with you. Now, once we've got those clarity on those areas, we bring this all together into a power statement of something along the lines of, I serve X people to or through Y in order to achieve, heal, gain Z. So you can steal that and you can play around with that, right? But what I will say is, to get that statement right, you have to go macro to go micro. And what I mean by that is, if you just go straight to trying to create that statement, you will put that in your Instagram bio and you will change your Instagram bio every month because you haven't really got clear on who you are, really got clear on what you're doing, right? So you really go macro, you go big of really understanding these 3 questions. And then with all that information and knowledge of your person, you craft it into this beautiful statement. So it has to be in that order. Okay. So I'm going to take a little sip of my tea before we move on to the next one. Beautiful. That is the clarity piece of this. As I said, that is where you start. If you rush to, I want to get clients, or I want to be of service, or I want to make this happen before the clarity, the rest doesn't work as well. Okay. And I've seen this in big businesses. After clarity, we have traction, connection, and commitment. Okay. And these 3 work together. As you can see from my little bouncy trampoline lady, you can nail traction, but if you have not nailed the next step of connection, people bounce out. You could have really got traction down, really got connection down, but if you haven't got a way to create commitment, they bounce out. So these 3 have to work together to create the system that will work in your business. And I'm going to explain to you what they all mean, what isn't working currently at the time you're watching this masterclass, what no longer works as methods for traction, connection, commitment. And then I'm going to share what is working together at the end with all of those 3 spaces. So let's dive in. Traction. What I mean by traction is, this is all around, how do you get people to know what you're offering? And more importantly, how do you get the right aligned buyer ready people to find you? Okay. You could have an amazing website that you spend loads of time on. You could have an amazing Instagram that you spend loads of time on. But if nobody knows that that exists, then you will not have the business. Okay. We have to have a way, a system, a structure to bring people to you. And that is a general business rule. But what I say is, it's not just about bringing people to you and getting loads of followers and millions of likes. It's about getting the right people to find you, the ones who are really aligned with what you're offering, who are really ready to commit, to invest in themselves, who are quality. So we're going for quality over quantity. We don't need to become Beyonce. We don't need to have all these millions of people adoring us, okay? What we do need is people who are ready to commit to a journey where you can facilitate transformation, where you can live out what you feel you are here on this earth to do, to guide those people, to help those people who are ready to receive it. So that is what traction means. It is bringing people like you are a magnet, and there's a way that they are coming to you. What no longer works in terms of traction? These are methods that in the past people have used, that I'm telling you right here, right now, when you're watching this video, do not work. The first is cold DMing. Now, I don't know about any of you guys, and maybe put in the comments if you've had this experience of maybe a business coach who's came in, you don't know who they are, they've liked a few of your posts, they've messaged you saying, hey, do you want to create 30K in 30 days? Why don't we work together? And you're like, who are you? Who's this? What is this person? And instantly somebody is trying to sell to you, right? And you don't know who they are. In the past, this may have worked 10 years ago, cold outreaching. You know, you see this in typical sales jobs, cold calling or knocking on doors or things like that. In the online space now, cold DMing does not work because what you're essentially doing is opening the front door of someone's living room, plonking yourself on that sofa and saying, hi, do you want to spend lots of money with me? And they're like, get out of my house. What are you doing here? No, 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 no. And there's no relationship built. Okay. So that does not work. What also does not work is hoping that you will go viral. So you've created your Instagram account and people have told you, you know, you just got to wait till you go viral, and you might be using a lot of trending audios and just hoping that finally your account will be seen. That strategy, as well as any kind of hope strategy, such as just keep posting, just keep staying consistent, don't work, okay? And I remember being so frustrated as you saw that image of me with crying in the park, people saying, just keep being consistent, just keep posting. I'm like, I've been doing that. Nothing's happening. Because what that is a hope strategy. And yes, we need content. It's a key part of our puzzle. However, gaining clients solely through your content is like a cherry on the top. It's like, wow, how easeful was that? Really, the bulk of your clients is going to come through a system that you build to bring them to you, which I will come to, okay? Another thing that used to work in the past that doesn't anymore is posting in community groups or Facebook groups about your offerings. Why? Because there's been a big increase of restrictions of us being allowed to do that in these spaces. Self-promotion isn't allowed so much. And secondly, it's similar to just going into someone's space and expecting them to buy from you without any pre-made relationship. The final thing in traction that doesn't really work is when we have these really overly staged ads directly to your offering. Once again, they don't know you, they are not connected to you, and you're saying, buy from me, straight off the bat. That doesn't create the relationship for trust to be built and connection to be built. And that leads us into that key point of connection, okay? So connection is all around, once people have found you, how do you create a connection with them as a human being first, then as a potential client, okay? So this is the missing piece with a lot of those traction methods, is this connection piece. And as I said, I'm going to share traction, connection, commitment, what does work as a trio after I've gone through these. But what no longer works in terms of connection is one-way communication. And what I mean by this is the assumption that because you are posting a piece of content or because you put a website out there, sales will come in. But what you've done is you've kind of created something, and I'm not saying it's not good what you've created, but you just kind of popped that to the ether, right? And hoped something would happen from there. But what connection is a two-way conversation. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with a friend or a colleague where they're just kind of talking at you and you're like, am I even needed in this conversation? Because I just feel like I'm like a soundboard, just talking at me. And maybe you come away from that conversation like, I feel pretty disconnected from that person. It doesn't feel really good. They didn't really ask me about me. It's the same in business, because business, you are dealing with human beings, whether it's business, whether it's not, okay? We want to feel connection. The second thing that no longer works is pain point only marketing. What I mean by this is marketing done in a way where it says, are you struggling with this? And then we don't just say that, we just prod even deeper on that pain to the point that person feels so crappy and you position yourself as the solution. There's two reasons why this doesn't work anymore. One being there's actually a lot of policy changes happening within social media, within the ads world, preventing you from being able to do this, because there needs to be a shift away from it. But more importantly, when you sign a client through pain point marketing, what is created is a victim savior complex, because you have victimized that person and positioned yourself as a savior. So they're coming into that dynamic thinking you are going to save them, where in reality, we all know that any transformation is a co-creation. They have to show up and do the work. They have to make the shifts in order for things to change in their life as well. And finally, inauthentic DM conversations. So even if their first message isn't related to sales, if they haven't asked anything about your life, they haven't got to know you to even see if the service that they provide is going to be helpful for you, it's going straight into selling. It's going straight into inauthenticity. And this is something you can just smell off people, I think. I think you can just tell when someone's being a bit inauthentic. And if you can sense that, they can sense that with you too. The final piece of this puzzle before we bring it all together is commitment. So this is all around once you have made the connection, how can you change that connection into commitment? Commitment for them to change their lives, commitment for them to go all in with this journey. What no longer works is that pushy sales approach. The same reason the pain point marketing doesn't work. You know, this approach of really shaming them on the call into buying with you. I don't know if anyone on this call has had this experience. I've had a few previous clients who have made investments in the past through that really pushy way where they felt pressurized to do it on the call, and it's really not worked out because they haven't been connected to their self. They haven't been connected to spirit. They've just been pushed. But also what doesn't work is really, really avoidant sales, which is something that sometimes us as soul-led workers can find ourselves moving towards, which is when you really don't want to be pushy. You really want to be from the heart. But in doing so, you're like, yeah, so that's my offering. It's this much. Oh, and you feel really uncomfortable with the whole process of selling. And if you don't feel good in your energy of selling, they're not going to feel good in their energy of buying. Okay. I'm seeing Sarah having a giggle there. So I think that resonates for you. Maybe let me know others if you're feeling that you can move to that. I did at the beginning of my business journey because I really didn't want to be pushy. So I was so overly friendly to the point that I wasn't backing that. I knew I had something that could change their freaking life. And I actually need to empower them, let them come to their own decision, but show them the power of what can come. And that is the difference. Jodie said she's feel called out. Well, don't worry. I was there once upon a time too. We all moved from somewhere. Okay. So as I shared, those are the stages. And to bring you back to the 4 before I share what does work. Clarity, we have to do that first. Then we have the traction, connection, and commitment that work together. Now you guys know what those stages are, and you know what does not work. So let's dive into what does. And what I'm about to share with you on this next slide is my entire strategy broken down. This is the entire process that took me from my 9 to 5 to be able to transition into full-time in my business, living in South America. This is the very process that my clients go through in their journey. So I'm dropping a truth bomb here. So ears pricked and let's dive into it. Now, before we do, these colors that were on the last slide of traction, connection, commitment relate to what's here. So I'm going to break this down. I don't expect you to understand what this means right now. We're going to look through this together. But this is what works for traction, connection, commitment. Green represents our traction, okay? This represents that stage of bringing people to us. 80% of the traction, what I have seen, and I have tried everything out there under the sun, is coming from ads that are done correctly. And I'm going to explain what that means. 20% comes from content. And as you can see, that goes to this free relevant audience building offer, because if we run an ad directly to our big offering of working with us before we've made any connection, people aren't going to buy. So we move away from buy from me to connect with me through this offering. As I said, ads is a whole world in its own right, okay? If you do not know how to run ads properly, Mark Zuckerberg will just take your money. You might as well just burn that stuff, right? He's not in it for the soul, okay? However, when you do know how to run ads right, it changes the trajectory of everything. For me, hand on heart, running ads has changed the trajectory of my business and of my life when I learned how to do them with this focus on quality over volume, okay? What we can do with ads when we know how to do them right is bring your dream aligned buyer ready clients to you rather than you having to go out and scramble. Where are they? How can I find them? We bring them to you. And this does two things. One, saves you a heck load of energy, okay? You become an island and they come and visit you versus you having to get on your wooden boat every morning and go to all these different islands. And it's so tiring and so much effort just to get people to you. Ads make you the island and they come to you. And secondly, to that, because they have came to you, the dynamic is instantly different. They are instantly warmer because you haven't gone into their space and gone, hey, look at me, look at what I'm doing. They've came to you, which means they feel more open, they feel more connected to you because they've made the decision to be there. You've guided them. You've said, hey, I'm over here on this island. You've advertised the island, but you haven't pushed anybody on a boat. And that really creates a powerful dynamic of how you get into a relationship with that person. As I said, and imagine I've got a big megaphone here, right? Megaphone insert here. There is a way to learn and run ads that is mainstream, that is focusing on volume, on just churning out loads of people. And if you have enough people, some of them will be interested. Again, that costs a lot of money. That requires a lot of energy. And the way I believe that magic happens and what I've seen magic create in my business, in my client's business, is when we focus on quality leads. We are bringing people to us who actually are already looking for what we offer. So it's just a perfect match. And that is the power of doing ads correctly. As I said, there is still an element of traction that can come from organic content. You can gain followers and gain clients through your organic content. However, organic growth has become significantly harder in the last 5 years, which is why, as a business coach, this is 20% of the package. It's those cherries on top. Amazing. People have found you. Amazing. Let's do it. But if you are only relying on that, it's years. It can be years, or it's luck. You know, it's nothing that can be taught. It's nothing that can be guaranteed. You might make it, you might go viral, things might happen, or you could spend 3 years posting and nothing really happens. And that's why I call that a hope strategy. And we love a bit of hope. Bring me the hope, bring me the cherries on top. But I'm also going to have a really clear system to ensure that I can actually go legit with this, so that I can leave my job, so that I can make that animal sanctuary, so I can travel the world. I can't just rely on hope. It has to be a blend. So content, yes, is a part of it, but as you can see over here, content is multicolored. So we have a few elements of why content is important within your ecosystem of these 4 steps to signing consistent, aligned clients with a system that works. So let's dive into them. This orange color represents the next step, which is connection. So content is predominantly a connection method rather than attraction method. We also have emails and DM conversations as ways to connect to people. Now, all 3 of these, content, emails, and DM conversations, have an art form to them. If we are really being pushy and those other things that I shared about that don't work, these won't work. You have to shift your mindset that content, emails, DM conversations are predominantly places of connection. They are secondary places for selling, okay? But that is not where we start with people. Within content, it can be an amazing space for connection. And my recommendation with content is 80% of your content should have calls to engagement rather than 20% of your content being calls to action. And that would mean book a discovery call with me, find out more about my program. 80% is connection. It's saying, did this resonate with you? What were your thoughts on this? How does this land with you? And you're sparking conversation. If you envision a relationship, you don't go up to someone in a bar and say, shall we get married and have lots of children? You don't start there. You know, we say, hi, what's your name? Maybe what's your interest? And then maybe a few dates in, you say, do you have a good relationship with your mum? And you ask those more deep questions, right? But it's a journey that you go through. It's the same within business. We have to connect to people first. And sometimes those connections will naturally turn into commitment quickly. Some of them you might connect to, and then a year later, they come back to your space. Like, you know, I loved that we spoke about that. And I was thinking of getting a coach, and you were the first person on my mind. You get a quick return of investment from connecting sometimes, and sometimes it's a slow burner, but you are building this compound effect of your business over years to come, of being known as that person who is authentic, who is willing to connect. So that is how you can do it through content. Within emails, emails are a huge space for connection. They have stood the test of time, okay? We've had Facebook, which had loads of growth, and then Instagram had loads of growth. Now all the young ones are on TikTok with loads of growth, all right? There's always shifts within the industry, but emails have stayed consistent since the beginning of the computer, okay? They are something that consistently we use and rely on, and you're going directly to someone's inbox. They are a really powerful way to connect. And the same with content, 80% of your emails for connection, 20% for calling to action and bringing them forward. And that same vibe within the DM conversations. Within this space, there's an art form of how to connect to people on DMs where you're genuinely curious on, am I right for this person? Is my service going to change their life? And you find that out first before you start to tell them about it. So by the time you are telling them about it, it's so natural in the conversation. It's not a random put in thing that feels really awkward and a little bit sleazy and a little, why am I saying this? It's like they've shared so much with you and you have a solution. Why would you not tell them about that potential solution? Okay. And that is the point we get to within DM conversations. And there really is an art form to this. But the basis of that is it is a human being that you are talking to. So talk to them like a human being and then see them as a potential person for your business. As you can see within content, emails, and DM conversations, there's a little bit of blue. And that blue color is commitment. So within content, within emails, within DM conversations, we want to create micro commitments in people. And what that means is we want to create commitment for them to get on a call, which is that big blue block, okay? So we are never directly selling in our DM conversations, our emails, our content. If we have an offering that it's big, it's a big transformation over lots of months, we want to bring them to a call. We want to connect to them and really share with them. And that is in that booked call where we learn the art of creating commitment in people. The way we do that is through empowering them. We make them sense the possibility of their life. We are not forcing, we're not pushing, we're not shaming, because they already have something inside of them that wants this. Otherwise, they would not be on that call with you, okay? So we invite them to see themselves. We invite them to move past their human fear into their soul. And you are just almost acting like that mirror for them, okay? And that is the journey. So let me bring this through. What is this soulful business strategy? As we have seen, these 4 stages that allow us to sign consistent, aligned clients with a system that works is clarity, traction, connection, and commitment. Okay, we need to have that clarity. We have to have a way for them to find us. We have to be able to connect to them, and we have to be able to switch that connection into commitment. And if you're wondering, how am I going to get people to see my emails? How are people going to follow me on Instagram? That all happens within the traction stage. The traction stage supports you building your email list and building your online following. And then from that, you are able to connect. And from that, you are able to create commitment. Now, that is one side of this. The other side is having your soul at the center. And when I say the word soul, people often think this is just the softness, you know, our kind heart, our spirit. But soul isn't just that. Soul is also your fiery side. It's your drive. It's the thing that's making you not give up on this dream. It's your determination to be of service through your work. Because this isn't necessarily an easy path, but something in you wants to do this. It wants to make this world a better place. And you have to be able to connect to that fire when the going gets tough. Remember why you're here. Purpose over self, and that really enables you to create that fire that thrive in your business. Again, I'm going to have a little sip because I'm doing a lot of talking, and then we'll go on to the next slide. Before we move on, I just want to have a check-in. Put in the chat, How is this sounding? How is this making sense for you? Now, if you have seen this for the first time, there is going to be a recording. You can re-watch this, you can re-understand it, you can ask me questions after the masterclass all around this. But this truly is years and years of me figuring this all out and going and falling down and getting up and falling down and getting up to bring you this. So hopefully you don't have to fall down. You don't have to scrape your knees as many times as I did, okay? Because I have scraped it for the collective. And that way we can clap some timelines together. Okay. The last thing I want to say in relation to this, bringing you back to my Kim K moment, is do not DIY the very thing that you care about most. Okay? This business that you are trying to birth, you care so much about this. You care about what you are creating, what you're putting out into the world. Don't try and DIY this. You might have a jigsaw piece from here, 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 and you're trying to stick these pieces together and they're not really fitting. And I don't know if you think of a jigsaw and you're like, oh, it kind of fits. I'm just going to push it a bit harder. And you try and get it to fit, but it just doesn't. And the picture just doesn't look right. Okay. Trust me when I say this takes so much longer when we try and DIY this process. And also, don't feel you have to do this alone. There is no shame in getting support in the areas that you need support in, okay? This was something I used to feel because I felt really good about being a coach, but I'd never had a business minus the Airbnb before, right? Okay, so I didn't know how to have an online business. And I thought, oh, but I should know this. I should be able to do this. The problem wasn't me. The problem wasn't that I wasn't a good coach. The problem was that I had knowledge gaps on how to be an entrepreneur, on how to be a CEO. Because when we put on the hat of being a coach, a guide, a healer, we are also committing to putting on the hat of being a soul-led entrepreneur. And that's a different hat with a different set of rules. And we have to learn that hat in order to be able to do what lights us up. So I want to share with you and show you how you can avoid that guesswork of, okay, Rosie said something about ads and quality. I'm not really sure. I don't even know how to set up ads. Or, oh yeah, content. I should have engagement, but what do I even post? I get stuck, or I don't know how to not be avoidant in sales. I just don't know how to be like that. Let me show you how to avoid the guesswork and do in months what takes most people years. And that is the scenario here. Most people take years to create their business, or some sad statistic like 85 or 95% of businesses in their first 5 years shut down. You are not one of those people. All of these people in this call, you are not one of those people, okay? Because you are here, you are finding out more, you are staying connected, but you want to collapse that timeline, you want to make it happen. So I want you to be able to do what most people do in years, in months, while staying connected to your soul, while feeling connected to your spirit. And that is exactly what I teach inside both my one-to-one and my group container. In both of these phases, we're going to move from concept to consistent clients through these things, right? We're going to get crystal clear on who you are, who you serve, and how you serve them. We're going to develop and structure your offerings so that they deeply align with you and what your ideal clients want. We're learning and implementing systems that bring you consistent, aligned clients with ease. So this is social media, soulful selling, funnels, ads, the works, everything that we covered in this masterclass. We're also doing the soul and mindset work to hold yourself in the fear and expand into your CEO potential. And you have me as your mentor every step of the way in both one-to-one and the group spaces. Now, either the one-to-one or the group space is for you if you're in the early stages of building your soul-led business. So what I mean by this is either you have recently qualified or decided to start a business, you have 0 to 5 clients, you've started trying to market yourself, but it feels pretty uncertain and you're lacking clarity on exactly who you serve and how you serve them, or you don't yet have a clear system on how to attract aligned clients. Now, you don't have to hit every single one of these bullet points, but you do have to be in this area. Maybe you've recently qualified, but you haven't even started to market yourself because you just don't know where to start. Or maybe you've done one post and nothing more, okay? You just need to be somewhere in this range of the early stages, and these are indicators of what that would look like. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the difference between the one-to-one and the group container. So the one-to-one journey with me is fully personalized. This offers direct, tailored support to you, and we have more contact time. We work through everything together in our weekly live calls, and you also get ongoing support with me beyond the session in two ways. One of which is Telegram support, where I will be coaching you and supporting you beyond the session. And the second is I personally do reviews and provide feedback of your work beyond the session. So I'll look at your content, your ad scripts, your emails, and so much more, so that in session we get to stay focused on the big picture. The group program is structured as a self-paced learning experience. So you go into the modules and you are learning the process, but you have weekly support calls with me and the rest of the group where I answer your questions and guide you through key checkpoints in the journey. So there is that contact time, and this is capped at 8 people maximum in the group. So you are getting that quality time of support. In the group space, of course, you also gain peer support and that community element, people walking alongside you in their soul-led journey. And we have a group chat for everybody in the group program where we offer and provide support, but that isn't a space where I will be giving you coaching. It is a peer support space. Now, if you're not sure whether one-to-one or group is right for you or my current availability, let's have a chat. Book in a free connection call with me by following the link below the masterclass link in this email, and we can see what is the best fit for you, what you're currently struggling with, and how I can best support you in thriving, in becoming the soul-led business owner you are meant to be. Now, remember, waiting attracts waiting. I'm going to say that again. Waiting attracts waiting. You know this path is for you. You deserve a real system, a real strategy that is going to make that dream a reality. That's something you wake up with every single day. And that is not going to happen with faith alone. We need faith, but we also need a real system, a real strategy. And that is what I'm passionate about providing for you. Okay. Thank you so much for your time today. Please book in that call. What have you got to lose by just connecting and seeing how I can co-create your dream with you?